Hello everyone, have a nice day. Today we're going to step into a warm, emotional day with Tutien and Jack as they celebrate little Anna in their simple bamboo home on the Pomelo farm. It starts sweet, but there's a quiet tension because Jack is clearly hiding something, and Tutien can feel it. As the day unfolds with small gifts and heartfelt moments, every smile carries a hint of anticipation. Until the evening brings a surprise that changes the meaning of the celebration. If you find this story interesting, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. The lamplight was low and honey warmed, turning the bamboo walls into soft gold. The house was finally quiet, with no footsteps, no laughter outside, no voices calling Anna's name. Only the faint rustle of pomelo leaves and the slow, steady breath of a sleeping baby. Tutien stood near the woven crib, watching Anna's tiny chest rise and fall. The plush rabbit was tucked under Anna's arm like it belonged there. 1 year old. 1 whole year of learning how to breathe, how to trust, how to be a family. Behind her, Jack didn't say a word. She heard the soft scrape of wood on the low table, something being placed down with care. Not a plate, not a cup, something heavier, something meant. Tutien turned, and Jack's eyes met hers for half a second. Nervous, shining, like he was holding back a secret too sweet to say out loud. Jack? Her voice came out quieter than she intended. He didn't answer. He only nodded once, like, not yet. And then morning arrived. Sunlight slipped through the bamboo slats in warm ribbons, painting the room with a gentle glow. The Pomelo farm outside was still half asleep, air damp with grass and fruit, chickens scratching lazily as if today was just another day. But inside, Tutien moves like today mattered. She smoothed the simple cloth on the low table and set a small cake box in the center like it was treasure. Nothing flashy, just enough to make a first birthday feel real. Jack stood by the stove, sleeves rolled up, heating milk with the focus of a man defusing a bomb. He kept glancing at the doorway, then at the time, then away again, guilty in the funniest way. Tutien leaned against the table, studying him. "You're acting suspicious." Jack didn't look up. "I'm not suspicious. I'm concentrating." Concentrated on what? He cleared his throat, stirring the milk like it could expose him. On not burning it. Tutien's laugh filled the small room without needing volume. She stepped closer, and for a second, her shoulder brushed his. Jack's hand paused, just long enough to feel the contact before he forced himself to keep stirring. It was the tiniest tension. Sweet, romantic, almost fragile. From the crib, Anna let out a small squeak. 2 bright eyes blinked open like she'd been waiting for the light. Tutien hurried over. "Good morning, little sunshine." Anna kicked twice and smiled so wide Tutien's chest ached. She lifted her up, kissed her cheek, and Anna immediately grabbed her hair like it was the best game in the world. Jack turned at the sound of Anna's giggle. Everything in his face softened, the hard edges of his outside life melting away. "Happy birthday," he whispered straight to Anna. Anna stared at him with serious focus, then reached out. Her fingers caught his sleeve, and Jack froze for half a second, like he'd been touched by something sacred. "She knows you," Tutien murmured. Jack swallowed, eyes bright. "She really does." After breakfast, the bamboo home transformed into a tiny celebration. A mat laid outside, wildflowers in a jar. The cake is waiting like a promise. Jack turned his phone face down and left it on the shelf, as if he was choosing this moment over every urgent call in the world. Tu Tien noticed. Her heart warmed and then tightened, because Jack disappeared into the bedroom twice, came back empty-handed twice, and each time his smile looked a little too controlled. She crossed her arms, pretending to be stern. "If you're planning something," Jack stepped closer, lowering his voice as if Anna could understand secrets, "then trust me." The words hit Tu Tien quietly, but deep. Trust wasn't just a word. It was a choice she kept making every day because he kept showing up. A soft knock came from outside. Not a crowd, not loud, just a small delivery left at the entrance. A basket of fruit, a wrapped gift, a note with neat handwriting. Jack's mother, Mrs. Ly, stepped into the doorway a moment later, her expression warm and careful, as if she didn't want to disturb the tenderness in the air. "I didn't want to be late," she said softly. "Is my birthday girl awake?" Anna squealed at the sound of a familiar voice, and Mrs. Ly laughed, her eyes turning shiny in a way she tried to hide. Tu Tien passed Anna into her arms. Mrs. Ly held the baby close, and Anna patted her cheek like she was checking if she was real. Mrs. Ly froze, then smiled through it. "Oh, she remembers me?" Jack looked away fast, pretending to adjust the tablecloth, but Tu Tien caught the emotion in his jaw, the way he held it in like a man learning how to be gentle. Mrs. Ly glanced at Jack, then at Tu Tien, reading the quiet tension she'd felt all morning. "You two have done well," she said. "The first year is not easy." Jack exhaled slowly, as if he'd been waiting for someone to say that out loud. Tu Tien's fingers brushed Jack's for a second small contact. Big meaning. Outside, the sun climbed higher. The farm brightened. The day began to feel full. And Jack, still too calm, still too careful, kept looking toward the bedroom door like the real celebration wasn't on the table, but hidden somewhere, waiting for the moment when everyone else believed the day was already complete. By late afternoon, the bamboo house didn't feel bigger in size, only in warmth. The sun softened into honey-colored shadows, and outside the pomelo trees swayed like they were humming, along with the happy noise drifting in from the yard. Gifts had piled up near the doorway, small baskets, wrapped boxes, and handwritten notes from people who couldn't stay long. Every now and then, Tu Tien heard footsteps fade away, a voice calling, "Happy birthday, Anna!" And then the silence again. Inside, Anna crawled straight into the center of everything, like she owned the day. She tugged at the edge of Tu Tien's skirt, then wobbled toward Jack with both hands stretched out like a commander demanding to be carried. Jack scooped her up and lifted her slightly, grinning. "You're the boss today, huh?" Anna squealed, then patted his cheek harder than necessary. Tu Tien laughed, but her throat tightened at the same time. She watched Jack's face so soft, so present, then noticed it again. That controlled calm in him, like he was waiting for a specific second to arrive. She narrowed her eyes. "You're still suspicious." Jack blinked innocently. "I'm just happy." Mrs. Ly, sitting a little to the side with her hands folded, smiled like she'd been holding her own emotions all day. "Let him be," she said gently. A man is allowed to be dramatic on his daughter's birthday. Jack shot her a look, half embarrassed, half grateful. "Mom," Tu Tien leaned closer to him, voice low. "If you're planning something..." Jack's smile turned quieter, deeper, then "trust me." The simple sentence hit Tu Tien harder than it should have. She didn't answer. She just adjusted Anna on her hip and turned toward the table, where the small cake waited in its box like a secret. When the breeze cooled, they moved closer to the entrance so the evening air could reach them. Tu Tien smoothed the cloth again, even though it was already perfect. Jack brought out a single candle. Mrs. Ly tilted her head. "Only one?" "1 year," Jack said, carefully pressing it into the cake. "One candle, one wish." He lit it. The flame flickered small and brave, throwing warm light into Anna's eyes. For a few seconds, the room felt like it stopped moving. Even the sounds outside thinned into silence. Jack guided Anna's tiny hand closer, not too near, letting her feel the warmth. Anna stared, fascinated, lips forming a round little "oh," like she wanted to copy the flame. "Anna," Jack murmured. "Blow!" She puffed once more, curiosity, then breath. The flame trembled and stayed. No one laughed at her. Jack just smiled wider. "Again!" Anna puffed again, cheeks serious. The flame shook harder this time. Tu Tien held her breath. Jack leaned in, barely adding his breath to hers, just enough to help without stealing the moment. The candle went out. For one heartbeat, there was silence. Then Tu Tien gasped and kissed Anna's cheek again and again, until Anna squealed like she'd won something huge. Mrs. Ly clapped softly, eyes shining. Jack stared at the dark wick like he couldn't believe it happened, and then his gaze lifted to Tu Tien, wet and quiet, like a promise he couldn't say out loud yet. As the sky deepened into blue, Mrs. Ly finally stood. She kissed Anna's forehead and spoke softly, as if the night itself could hear. "Sleep well, birthday girl." When she left, the house settled into the kind of quiet that felt earned. Anna yawned, heavy-eyed. Tu Tien carried her to the woven crib and laid her down. Within moments, Anna curled up and slept like the whole day had been a dream she decided to keep. Tu Tien stayed there, watching Anna's chest rise and fall, peaceful, real. Behind her, Jack didn't speak. He only walked to the low table and placed something down. A thin, handmade album. Tu Tien turned, confused. "What is this?" Jack watched her like he was holding his breath. She opened it slowly. Inside were photos that were simple, imperfect, and beautiful. Anna's morning smile. Jack crouched on the floor with toys. Mrs. Ly holding Anna with that soft, surprised joy in her eyes. Tu Tien kissing Anna's cheek, laughing without thinking. Then Tu Tien reached the last page. At the top, a neat line of handwriting. Next milestone. Her breath caught. On the page sat a tiny pair of new baby shoes, untouched, waiting. Beside them was a small card with one sentence. "When you take your first steps, we'll take ours too." Tu Tien's fingers trembled as she touched the shoes. She looked up, eyes shining. "Jack." He nodded, suddenly nervous like a boy. "I wanted you to have something after everyone left. Something that stays." Tu Tien pressed the album to her chest like it was protecting her heart. Then she reached for his hand and held it tight. Outside, the pomelo leaves rustled in the dark. Anna slept. And the bamboo home, simple, imperfect, really held the kind of sweetness that always came last after the door closed.
Hello everyone. In this episode, Tutien and Jack prepare a simple birthday celebration for baby Anna at their bamboo home on a Pamela farm. Anna's laughter filled the days, while Jack acted unusually calm and secretive, making Tutien suspicious. Miss Ly visits briefly, holding Anna with teary joy and quiet praising the couple for surviving a difficult first year. As evening falls, they light a single candle on Anna's small cake. Anna tries to blow it out, and with just gentle help, the flame finally goes out, turning the moment into a tender family victory. After everyone leaves and Anna falls asleep, Jack reveals his greatest surprise and a handmade photo album of their year together. On the final page, Tutien finds tiny new baby shoes and a note promising their next milestone. When Anna takes her first step, they will take theirs too.